so plain and precious. Finally, the Book of Mormon is the keystone of testimony. Just as the arch crumbles if the keystone is removed, so does all the church stand or fall with the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. The enemies of the church understand this clearly.
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming. For that shall be a day of judgment, a day of sifting, a day of separating the good from the evil. I would venture a personal opinion that no event has occurred in all the history of the earth as dreadful as will be the day of the second coming, as fraught with the destructive forces of nature, as consequential for the nations of the earth, as terrible for the wicked, and as wonderful for the righteous.
Travis went good, so did you miss me? No? See, I got a lot of hate comments. I came back to watch the video I did early this morning so that it can now be shown throughout YouTube because of the analytical programming design they have in it. And so, to start off this hate comment replies, ignorance leads to hate. Hate leads to violence. And to use an example, Hamas, which is an Islamic terrorist group, which therefore America does not recognize their religious freedom to be terrorists, attacked Israel on their final day of celebrating their yearly major festival, feast, holy day. Tabernacles, Sukkot, Ingathering, and everybody since then have been demanding that Israel cease fire, that Israel stop the genocide, that Israel is guilty of war crimes, that Israel is in the wrong. And we Westerners are pretty stupid when it comes to understanding Islam. We don't really study it. The majority of the reason is because the majority of Westerners are Christian. And if they've left Christianity, they're capitalist. And so, Islam sees Western culture as a threat to Islam because it's alluring to their children to turn them away from Islam and Allah. And so, they have no problem taking away your agency. They have no problem with the doctrines of Lucifer. Just look at the way they treat their women. It was founded by Muhammad, 600 CE. Muhammad claimed to be the fulfillment of the Jewish prophecy Christ, the man like Moses, because Muhammad claimed that he went to the top of the mountain and received from the finger of Allah, the Quran, the new and everlasting covenant, with the law of sacrifice. And Muhammad then went on his missionary campaign to murder those who would not convert and utterly destroy, with burning, the villages of those people. And so his campaign went far and wide, caused much death, much destruction, and would erect shrines and mosques on the ashes. And so, yes, the Dome of the Rock on the ruins by the Romans of the Jerusalem temple. And despite this, knowing it's the Jerusalem ruins that they built their mosque on, they still are in denial that the Jews have claim to the land. And so let's do a role reversal and use Islam in place of Jews to reenact a new history. In 600 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came in and replaced the king of Islam with Zedekiah. 11 years later, Zedekiah refused to give tribute to Babylon, and so Babylon came back with their armies and destroyed the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem and took Islamic slaves back to Ur of Babylon. Under Cyrus, king of Persia, he gave the command of Allah to let the Islamic people go back to Jerusalem and rebuild their mosque, the Dome of the Rock. And so they did, and they had some problems with the Islamists who were mixed with the Assyrians who were deported, of the previous Islamists who were deported by Assyria back into Assyria. We'll call these the Samaritans. Half Islamist, half Assyrian. They had an internal hatred towards them because of their desires to build the temple their way. The Dome of the Rock their way. And then along came the Greeks, and they confiscated and took over the Dome of the Rock and began to sacrifice pigs on the altars, polluting the Dome of the Rock. During the Maccabean period, the Maccabeans, Islamists, fought a holy war and took back their Dome of the Rock and purged it with 8 days of lighting of the menorah, miraculously, because they didn't have enough oil. Then came the Romans, and they had their soldiers all over the place at the Dome of the Rock, and it was very uncomfortable. And so some Islamic jihadist groups decided to strike back against the Romans, which the Romans retaliated and just annihilated the Islamists and destroyed their Dome of the Rock, scattering them abroad. And then came Constantine, 325 CE. Islamists all had a different interpretation of the Quran, and Constantine ordered these different mosques, Islamic centers, to gather at Nicaea and forced them into one interpretation of the Quran. He decided to name the Christ Jesus, and none of the Islamic leaders, imams, could come to an agreement as to the nature and character of this brand new Christ. So Constantine was fed up with them and said, all right, I'm creating a brand new word, which means not real. This is now the nature and character of Jesus, whom I have designated as your Christ. The Quran now is literal history, and so we're not going to study science anymore. We're going to go into a dark ages. So no more plumbing. No more bathing. Yes, the mighty power of Jesus. Jesus the unclean. And so, these new Christians took possession of Jerusalem. Until the rebel Islamic jihadist group decided to do crusades to take back Jerusalem, which they did, and in so doing erected the third Dome of the Rock. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. It becomes clear in the hilarity of it that Islam has no claims. They weren't created until 600 CE. And yes, those of you who are Christian are also uncomfortable as you realize what Constantine did to the Jews. This basic knowledge of world history, especially regarding the Middle East, is kind of essential in understanding what's really going on. So when people say it's complicated, it's because they're trying to legitimize Muhammad's creation of Islam, purposely denying the history of the region. And so, yes, the Palestinians, Hamas, Hezbollah, all of Islam don't want the Jews back on their land. It's their land. They conquered it. They're not even happy with Christians doing pilgrimages there. And so, they lie, they cheat, they steal, they murder, all sorts of criminal, terroristic behaviors, because it's their land, and they will do whatever it takes to keep it. And so Hamas, by doing that attack on the Jewish holy day, was claiming it's a holy war, and that therefore all of Islam, not just of Palestine, are now in a holy war against any who support Israel. And all Islam, as the Palestinians are used as the central focus point to sacrifice their lives if necessary in sustaining and defending Islam, the law of sacrifice. And for a reward for their sacrifice of the women and children, they will be granted into paradise. Sort of like that Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where a missionary dies while on their mission and goes straight to the celestial kingdom, except they're not sealed in the temple. Oops. See, Islam, they don't worry about that. A man gets 72 virgins automatically dying in a holy war. So if you're a young girl who dies, you get to be a child bride in paradise. They just love women so much. So this needs to be understood with Mormons. Mormons believe they are superior, that they are the chosen ones, that they are in the one true church of Jesus Christ, despite the Book of Mormon saying it's the learning of the Jews, despite Joseph Smith saying in the Joseph Smith History of 1838, verse 19, Christianity is abominable. And likewise, Jesus. And disregarding verse 40, which is the learning of the Jewish Christ. That's that second vision. It's the exact same pattern match as the Book of Mormon's first story about Lehi's second vision. You're supposed to be looking for pattern matches when you do your scripture study. But nope. Because the Church of Jesus Christ turns the Book of Mormon into literal history, just like Constantine did to the Jewish scriptures called the Bible. Mormons don't see the prophecies. They don't see the patterns. They are in the Dark Ages. And because of this ignorance, it leads to hate comments on my channel, some of which are threatening, as they're claiming that I need to shut up and leave them alone to have their religious freedom. That I, as an apostate Korahor, have no rights to criticize the church for their lies, deceptions, and crimes. And that I don't even belong in Utah. If I don't like it, I need to leave. And yes, there have been numerous attempts over the past 2 decades, almost 15 years, of Mormons ordered by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or assumed ordered by the church to protect it, to murder me, to hurt me, to steal from me. So, let's get to the comments, shall we? Dardale, 9050. On my correctly comprehending the Book of Mormon. So this ought to be a good beam and mote. A projection of ignorance. So what do you have to say, Dardale? Dude, you're drunk with your own wisdom. An ad hominem attack, a fallacy argument. He's automatically wrong. He's making a false accusation, therefore. Oops, beam in the moat just kicked in. So he's assuming that he's got the correct interpretation from the Book of Mormon. Alma, no, that's not it. It's in the... Seriously? Now, 2 Nephi chapter 9. All Mormons are forced to memorize it, except for me. I refused to memorize, so I learned associative memory, which is why I was having difficulty finding the right words for it. Oh, the cunning plan of the evil one. Dude, you're drunk with your own wisdom. Oh, the vainness and the frailties and the foolishness of men. When they are learned, they think they are wise, and they hearken not unto the counsel of God. Is the Book of Mormon not the counsel of God? To see how much worse his beam is than his false accusation of my mote. For they set it aside, supposing they know of themselves, wherefore their wisdom is foolishness, and it profiteth them not, and they shall perish. By using this, alluding to it in his comment, he gave me a death threat. Naughty, naughty. Most who knew Bro Joseph would defend him with their lives. Really? I talk about it in the video, I guess, because he says it. I know I've talked about it in 2 videos. This may have been the second one, where I brought it up earlier on, because the other one was way near the end, where nobody listens. The only Mormon from Joseph Smith's day who defended with his life Joseph Smith in Carthage jail was John Solomon Fulmer. No one else. No one. I've got over 3.2K videos on this channel. I'm published. I'm educated. I'm degreed. I'm an expert, an exclusive expert in many things, because I've made decipherments and discoveries. And why? Because I hearkened unto the counsel of the Book of Mormon. That whole science of agronomy concerning faith, leading to reality in the flesh. That's the scientific process. And he obviously doesn't believe in that. He believes in faith without works. Yes, something in the back of your head is going, there's something more to that, isn't there? Isn't that, it's in the Old Testament, isn't it? And so now he's claiming that Joseph Smith would defend me no matter how bitter I am. What? What are you talking about? If you hadn't been catching on to my videos, because you're brand new, did you not catch what I told you about Jesus and about the Jewish Christ? That Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are in the learning of the Jews, which means they're not talking about Jesus. They're talking about a future human. Are you not getting it? Dardale, you did to me what you would do to Joseph if you were born back then, and you had no knowledge of what you currently know. You were one of the regular citizens back in those days, and you get a Book of Mormon from a missionary, and you believe them when they tell you it's another testament of Jesus Christ, and the name of Joseph's church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Just like they do today still. You deny your Christ. And where do you go in the afterlife according to the theology? Those who deny their Christ. Where do you go? Which kingdom do you go for denying your Christ? Dardale. And he says, this is what separates those who follow Christ from those who run. I'm not running. I'm right here. 3.2K videos on this channel. I'm not running. What are you talking about? And that was a video in and of itself, wasn't it? But we're still going to go on, because since the whole first part of my day is blown and I'm all caught up with the stuff I normally do, I check the market for the day to see how that's going, because we're in Armageddon. I'm waiting for the day that shall burn as an oven. And so I'm monitoring the stock market to see if I can recognize patterns and a tanking or pulling out of certain people right before the event. So I'm keeping an eye on it. It has nothing to do with our economy. The news still perpetuates the lie and pushes, oh, the stock market is up. Oh, the stock market took a hit today. Who cares? It's the multi-billionaires gambling when they own the dice that are rigged in their favor. They're manipulating the stock market. They get people who only put in thousands of dollars to put in the thousands of dollars, and it boosts their stock up, and then they decide, we're going to sell it. Buy low, sell high. And so all those people who invested lose their money, not the billionaires of the stock. They love to play this game, and the news is perpetuating this game as if it's somehow tied to our economy. God. Anyway. And then I then checked the U.S. debt clock. So I told you when it was at 33,666 billion. Just as when the stock market was at 33,666 for the Dow. And then I noticed that it was staying in the 33,000 range. It's this week it's been going up into the 34,000. And so that's also what you need to watch for, is them building it up so that they can drop it. And then I check the weather, and then check the pollution levels. And then Thursday, I check Utah's coronavirus numbers, stats. And then Friday, I do a weekly forecast of checking the weather for the whole United States and covering any potential hurricanes from the Atlantic. And so, yes, I'm well aware of the monsoons from Mexico that made it into Utah. I'm able to see those in advance. Urim and Thummim's are awesome. Don't you have one? And every day I also check the sign in the heavens for the day. So, James Svelupek, 73. Official LDS Church statement. No aid to Israel. Palestinians are retarded, but get aid. Now, on the surface, you might not understand because you don't follow me, you're not listening, you don't stay long enough to learn from me. If you're unfamiliar with what's going on, there's Armageddon, caused by Hamas, to exterminate a genocidal war, holy war, against Israel. And they've got everybody wanting Israel to lay down and die. And so the church came out with their first presidency statement on that war and said there are good people on both sides, but Israel should cease fire. And that abominable first presidency statement betrayed a local Jewish rabbi who was surprised that the church would say such a thing, as he thought that there was a friendship between the first presidency and Jews. And so, because of that first presidency statement, the Jerusalem Center had to flee. And at first they went to Greece. But it didn't take too much longer after that. I think it was just the weekend. That the church had to bring them home. It was not safe in Greece either. All because of the first presidency statement. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are anti-Semitic. Always have been. They're never going to apologize for it. They're never going to confess and admit it. But you really need to either watch the YouTube videos or buy his book, Moroni and the Swastika. So, you know how to search. You know how to Google search. It's on Amazon. Look them up. And so, yes, it's not surprising that the church didn't give aid to Israel. The church has done many church news stories in which they claim to donate to the Red Cross. But if you've been paying attention to the news, the Red Cross refuses to give aid to Israel. They went in first to Palestine, to the Palestinians, demanding that Israel cease fire. They were giving aid and comfort to the enemy, the Red Cross. You are not neutral when you give aid and comfort to the enemy. That's why our Constitution writes it that way. in regards to seditious conspirators and traitors. You cannot give aid and comfort to them. Not first aid, not food, not water, not electrical, not shelter, not anything. Because you now become the enemy. You are aiding and abetting in the crime, or the terrorism in this case. They didn't even bother to go to the hostages. That was a recent thing that now, after all these weeks, Hamas, we understand that there are hostages. We didn't realize this before. Can we give aid to them, please? No. They said no. Just like Israel said no. This is war. And in war, the soldiers get their own and pull them out into places of safety, or MASH units. If you're unfamiliar with MASH, you are really young. So that the wounded can then be taken care of at that point. But in the war zone, no, you stay out. This is the evil of Islam. Trying to find cause to blame Israel. The Palestinians were given more than enough notice to leave if they didn't want to be involved in the fighting. Hamas told them to stay, they stayed, they became martyrs for their holy war. And all the world is ignorant about this concept of Islam and blame Israel. And so, yes, the church said no aid to Israel when they said they gave to charitable organizations involved. The news reported the Red Cross. The church gives to the Red Cross, thus no aid to Israel. That's a deductive reasoning of logic, not a fallacy argument, not a made-up title. So next, I go over Palestinians are retarded, but get aid. So yes, the Red Cross were able to sneak in and give aid and comfort to the terrorists, especially at the Egyptian border, where the aid was getting through. But the retarded part, I didn't say it in the video. You're supposed to follow me. You're supposed to know about these frauds who call themselves psychologists. See, decades ago when I was a little kid, psychologists used to call people who are mental health challenged as retarded. You've got a mental retardation. You need to come and sit on our couch and tell us how you feel. And do you masturbate? And do you feel guilty for masturbating? Standard line. But first question. They're placing you in a category box by which to judge you. They're name-calling you. Just because it's now mentally health challenged doesn't mean it's now good and positive. Because all they've done was just change the word. The meaning is all the same. Mental health challenged is the same as retarded to them. It's just now in the schools, They don't use the old terminology. So that the new recruits go out into the workforce believing that they're helping people by name-calling them and putting them on drugs. I went over this when I found Mackenzie. Mackenzie, Mormon girl. At 15 years old, she was sexually... She doesn't say what happened. But a married priesthood leader sexually abused her. We'll use general abuse. She's a 15-year-old girl. You don't touch little girls who are not your own child. And you shouldn't sexually touch your own child. That's sick and wrong, too. And the bishop did nothing about it. And so she was left scarred from that. So when she was 23 years old, she says that she went to her bishop to apply to go on a mission, to get the bishop's interview. And the bishop asked her, so is there anything in your past that you have not resolved with proper priesthood authority? And she said, well, there was this time where that married priesthood leader sexually abused me. The bishop, she said, called the hotline. And then the bishop told her to go see family services. And family services said, you're mentally retarded, called depression. And they began drugging her for depression. The mental retardation of depression. All because she is a victim of child abuse. The church covered it up, denied her going on a mission, name-called her through family services, and now she doesn't make the connection that family services was in the wrong from the church. She still believes and does videos saying she's depressed and takes depression drugs, which means that when she goes off of her depression drugs and she doesn't take them regularly, she goes through what's called withdrawal symptoms. And in those withdrawal symptoms, she's likely to experience feelings and thoughts of wanting to commit suicide or harm herself and harm others, as psychologists use as the questioning. All she needs to do is be detoxed so that she can get her life back, so that she can have her agency back. But unfortunately, she believed the psychologists because they're professionals in the field. Why would they lie and do that to her? Sort of like, why would the married priesthood leader do that to her? Makes me want to cry. Because now she goes on a rant against the wrong people, blaming Joseph Smith for being a child rapist, etc. She has no clue that it was Brigham Young who framed Joseph Smith. Because you're not watching my 3.2 plus K videos on this channel. Because I study hearkening to the counsel of God when I study, not relying on my own spiritual witness to think I'm wise. So James, those Eastern European names are too much for me to handle. It takes practice. says you need to learn how to read, almost like I had skimmed over this before, so I knew that I was going to talk about as an introduction for this. And stop misinformation. Get off your cell phone and get on an actual computer or laptop. That you are telling people so far you have not, the misinformation that you have been telling people. He's telling me to shut up, that I'm a liar. I just went over it with you. Because they use mental health. They're giving aid and mental health assistance to the Palestinians. Thus, the Palestinians are retarded, but getting aid. So far, you have not made a single statement that is true. So he's accusing me of lying, and it's a false accusation, and thus, he's lying. He comes to one video. He doesn't bother to watch the 3.2 plus K videos. This is called a hasty generalization. It's a fallacy. Brother, you need to stop. There's the threat. Threatening me to be silent, denying me my First Amendment rights. And all I'm doing is warning you as a Mormon about the dangers and evils and threats to your life by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. See, it took me finding out that Brigham Young was the framer of Joseph and had murdered Mormons, that he had orchestrated Joseph Smith's assassination. That was years ago. I am not in Joseph's church if the supposed successor is the one who murdered him so that he could be the successor. The Book of Mormon already teaches me about that doctrine, or shall I say, to hearken to that counsel of God. Apparently not for Mormons. You need to stop what you are doing, and he calls me brother. He's Judas. He's accusing me of being Judas. Thus a false accusation. Thus, he's projecting that he's Judas. See how much fun the beam of the mote is? Stop what you are doing and change your ways. I already changed my ways. When I obtained the exclusive knowledge I knew from Plato in the Republic, that I had a duty and a responsibility to teach and warn others. It's in the Doctrine and Covenants too. In fact, let's look it up. Heaven forbid that I not use scripture. Warn neighbor. Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, verse 81. Behold, I sent you out to testify and warn the people. Because the Book of Mormon, you have to warn them about the restoration of the gospel, right? You've read the ending of the Book of Mormon. It's all about happiness and all is well in Zion. Warm, fuzzy feelings, right? That's the ending of the Book of Mormon, right? No need to warn anybody about anything. right? Because you've read the Book of Mormon, James. And it becometh every man who hath been warned to warn his neighbor. Are you my neighbor? Won't you be my neighbor? There's the theme song in the description below. We'll put it on this paper. Could do the Eddie Murphy version from SNL. It will, just to be funny. SNL. Eddie Murphy. Change your ways and follow Jesus. He's now an anti-Semite, as he's now telling me that I am not allowed to worship how, where, and what I may. I am not allowed to believe in Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon and the learning of the Jews. That I must change my religion because I'm wrong. And he's right about abominable Jesus. Not to the philosophy of men. See, he's now belittling the Book of Mormon. Calling the Book of Mormon the philosophy of men. But his interpretation of the Book of Mormon, another testament of Jesus Christ, is the counsel of God. See, you guys don't hurt me when you make these comments. I'm just able to turn them around and show you the error of your ways. And it's sad that you all want to die rather than save yourself and your family. Because psychologists, remember they asked that question. Do you desire to hurt yourself? Do you desire to hurt others? James desires to hurt himself and hurt others. He does not want to listen to the warning voice. And here comes a threat. If you continue on this path that you are on, there will be a curse fall upon. Bring up another scripture from the Book of Mormon. It's in Alma, chapter 3. So I got to go to 4 and then scroll back up to find it. And it has to do with the Amlicites. Who mark themselves with red. And so Mormon steps in to explain. Verse 18. Now the Amlicites knew not that they were fulfilling the word of God when they began to mark themselves in their foreheads, just like the Lamanites. You missed that, critics. Nevertheless, they had not come out in open rebellion against God. Therefore, it was expedient that the curse should fall upon them. Now I would that ye should see, stepping in here, that they brought upon themselves the curse, and even so doth every James that is cursed bring upon himself his own condemnation. I don't know why they don't have a footnote there to the Mormons are under condemnation for not reading their Book of Mormon. Did you drop the ball on that one, Bruce R. McConkie? Was that you who forgot to put a footnote there for that? Because Benson used to quote it at the pulpit of conference all the time, condemning us because we're evil. And what is the curse? Give you a hint. It has something to do with the warning in the Book of Mormon. You know, the end of the story that Joseph Smith warns Mormons about too in verse 40, you know, where he also talks about the Christ you're supposed to listen to. That you shall no more utter a word until you shall confess all of your lie. And then there's a little emoji of a person head and the arm is up. I don't know what it's doing. I don't know if it's an L or saluting or face palm, forehead palming. I don't know. You can't hover over it to have it tell you what it is. But what lie? He does not see. He lied. He doesn't understand his Book of Mormon, as I have. He's twisted the Book of Mormon to commit a hate crime against me. This is a hate crime. Islam claims that they're being victims of hate crime because Hamas attacked Israel. And Islam supports that. Likewise, he thinks I am committing a hate crime against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, when he doesn't realize this isn't Joseph's church. And so, beam and mote, projecting to a far greater degree. We'll have to do a part 2. So since Edward Johnson had 2 comments, and then I've got Cool Beans, and then I have Alex Lintu, and then Kane Nulsocien. Well, to goes on another one, and it may not be today because it's now 4 o'clock. And I have another daily project to get going, because we got the countdown until the church news. So this is an hour. We're going to cut into our church news time today. Thanks a lot, guys. Dardale and James.